Ladies and gentlemen, it means it's time for another episode of the AFC Northcast. This is a more chipper than usual Joey joining you live with my glum co-host, Steelers Chad.
This is the worst day. There's been very few worse days than this day.
I understand exactly where you're coming from. I know the feeling.
God, it sucks so much.
You drowning your sorrows tonight there, buddy?
Yeah, this is going to be a multi-stage drowning. So just to cap it off, because it's the end, we've got some Grand Mayan, triple distilled, super fancy tequila. So let's just have a little of that for a second. Bear with me, good radio. So we're just going to pour a little shotski here. We don't do lime or salt or anything. This is nice tequila right here. That's that. Now that my soul has been lubricated, I'll introduce you to Prayer Group, because that's all that I have left. This is a beer from Tired Hands Brewing out of Philadelphia.
That's a healthy bottle.
That's right, Joey. It is. It is a healthy bottle. But here's the thing. Look, I don't work tomorrow, except for watching my daughter, but that's fine. I'm not drinking this while I'm watching her. She's in bed, people. Okay? Okay? I don't need your judgment right now. And it's a lager. It's a lager. It's very low alcohol. I'm basically drinking like 2 beers over the course of this podcast, which is barely going to stop me from feeling the pain of the discussions we have to have, okay? It's brewed with Pilsner malt, so again, very light. It's got a little bit of lemon juice in it. It's got some European hops, and it's just like a nice, classy table beer. Tired Hands does a lot of European-style brewing, so it's simple, it's elegant. Basically the opposite of everything that I watched Sunday night. But Prayer Group felt right, because it feels like I need a higher power right now in my life. So, cheers, Joey. Cheers to the AFC North. And what might you be drinking this evening?
Well, I went to the beer store. I was looking for some craft beers, and the beer shop by our house is part of Aviator Brewery. And usually they have like stuff from everywhere, and I don't know what's happened, but in the couple months since I've been there, now it's only Aviator beers, and I'm not interested in trying Aviator beers that I've already had, and so I just walked right back out and went to Harris Teeter and got myself some Dragon's Milk. So
have you drank that beer before?
I have not, but it's right up my alley. It's a stout, a bourbon barrel aged stout, and I figured it was appropriate because the Ravens slayed their personal dragon. Oh, that's a bit ahead.
It is, and once you get through it, I think you're going to be delighted. That is a fantastic little beer. I am a big fan. Good choice, Joey.
I am very excited about it.
Is there any beer in that cup?
It's my first beer, you know. I'm sure you remember your first beer.
Yep, at the ripe old age of 21, as far as everyone on the internet is concerned. It was a great day. I was hoping to not bury the lead today, Joey. So I wanted to talk some big-time AFC North news. The most important thing that's happened, the Cincinnati Bengals have hired an offensive line coach.
Holla!
I knew everyone would want us to talk about this, so I just didn't want to wait. So they hired Frank Pollock as their offensive line coach. Big name. So here's the thing. Technically, this is a rehire. He was actually already their offensive line coach until 2019 when Zach Taylor got hired. And then he left. And then he came back. And the Bengals community is very excited about this because, A, their running game was pretty good. up at that point. Like they had just gotten Mixon. They had a nice little thing going.
Mm-hmm.
And B, the players love him. Joe Mixon's already super excited about it. So this is like a guy that's going to replace a coach that was really, really disliked in the locker room, according to all reports. And he's already had some success developing offensive linemen and making Cincinnati's running game better. And he will be their run game coordinator, which basically means like the Steelers, like this guy's job will be to design their running attack. Um, the Steelers also have their offensive line coach do that. So it's a pretty exciting hire for the Bengals. I think they're feeling good about it. Most NFL fans aren't going to have a list of potential offensive line coaches in the top of their head. So the name might not mean a lot, but the point is the excitement. So they're feeling good about that. And sub headline, they also promoted Troy Walters from assistant wide receiver coach to wide receiver coach.
He is a former wide receiver. I recognize that name.
Yeah. And so this guy, I'd never heard of him, but this guy actually, he's kind of exciting because you're thinking like, look, dude, Cincinnati's wide receivers are good. They don't need a ton of fancy pants stuff going on there. But here's the deal, dude. This guy coached at Nebraska, Florida, and UCF, and he was an offensive coordinator in college for 5 years. So don't necessarily hear this name and think, oh, who cares, wide receiver coach. Think like this guy is on a trajectory. Like he will probably be an offensive coordinator soon, and it might be for the Bengals. Like he could be a guy that, it has a lot of input soon with Zach Taylor, and then eventually becomes offensive coordinator of the Bengals or somewhere else. So he could be an exciting guy for them. We probably won't hear anything he does this year necessarily, but it's kind of an exciting little move. He's a young guy, but he's got a lot of experience already, and yeah. So they got a couple coaches, so they're feeling pretty good. Good stuff for the Bengals. So basically, like the whole AFC North is happy. Everybody's happy.
Basically.
Right now. So, do you have any reaction to those coach hires? You care?
Nope.
Okay. Well, let's talk about other happy AFC North stuff then. The Ravens played an afternoon game on Sunday at 1 p.m. They stared into the heart of their nemesis, the Titans, a team that had dispatched them 2 times in 12 months prior, including a early playoff exit that no one really anticipated. Certainly no one on this podcast. Certainly no Joey's on this podcast. But things went a little differently, didn't they, Joey?
They sure did. And you know what? What can I say? The Ravens are the Titans' daddy. Historically, first team to win in the stadium formerly known as Adelphi Coliseum as a road team, the Baltimore Ravens. We also won the first playoff game in that stadium, formerly known as Adelphi Coliseum. And every time we go back, it's just fond memories of Ray Lewis stealing Eddie George's soul in the playoffs. And the Ravens did some of their own soul stealing today, vanquished some personal demons. Lamar got his first playoff win. The Ravens also won their first game since Lamar has been the starting quarterback where they were trailing at any point by double digits. Just a lot of feel good. Roddy, you didn't miss anything except we updated some Bengals assistant coach hirings. Should you call
and
in.
Drank a shot of tequila.
And Chad's in a bad spot. So we can start. So the game started with some trading some possessions, and you could just tell the Titans defense specifically was very, very hype for this game. They were celebrating tackles for 3-yard gains like they were game-winning tackles in the Super Bowl. It was very high energy. You could tell they were up for this game. There's been a lot of rivalry stuff going back to last season, the playoff exit, and then some pregame shenanigans between Malcolm Butler and John Harbaugh, and then Vrabel. No handshake after the game. So there's a little bit of history brewing between these two teams, old AFC Central rivalry. And eventually, the Titans got on the board first with what I called the A.J. Brown drive.
That's what it should be called.
Yeah,
Yes.
they had a big third down, I think, pickup where A.J. Brown was blanketed pretty well by Marlon Humphrey.
Yeah, it was great coverage. It's great coverage.
Tannehill made a beautiful pass. Like an absolutely perfect pass over A.J. Brown's shoulders, and he came down for the first down to keep the sticks going. And then we had a little bit more A.J. Brown on Marlon Humphrey crime. That's not, that's a bad choice of words, because I'm not crying about the non-OPI call. But
Are we on the crossing route, or are you skipping to the touchdown?
I was
He had 3
skipping
catches
to
on the drive.
I was skipping to the
Okay.
touchdown.
That's cool.
Where Marlon Humphrey fell down on basically just a one-on-one, not even a fade really, like it was just like a soft toss out to A.J. Brown in single coverage, which as the game developed, it seemed like a lot of the Titans passing game was that, because of the lack of success of Derrick Henry. I don't think the play action impact was what the Titans are used to or hope for, and there was a lot of just chuck it into single coverage to AJ Brown.
They didn't have Corey Davis. He played a little bit, but he had injury stuff going on. So I think he ended the game with like 2 targets and no receptions. So even though he's not nearly as good as AJ Brown, I think that just concept of having 2 giant people stirs up negative things in defenses, and they weren't able to maximize that for themselves in this game. So yeah, I think you're right. Their passing game didn't look like it normally does.
You have anything else to add about Mr. Brown?
I just want to quick say, and if you want to take this as an opportunity to have the debate, you can. I rewatched that pass interference touchdown a bunch of times on the game film, which actually was worse than the TV broadcast. It was further away and harder to see. He definitely extended one arm.
Mm-hmm.
But Marlon Humphrey held his inside shoulder for like 4 yards prior to that, and was with his backhand grabbing his other elbow. He just wasn't as strong. So like, to me, if they'd have called offensive pass interference, it would have probably by the book been an acceptable call. But like, Marlon Humphrey just doesn't often get out physicaled, and he was trying to be physical and he just lost. So to me, I wasn't fretting it.
Yeah, and I think watching like Marlon get pushed down was like the most jarring part. And he's not one to cry for calls, I don't think. That's more Peter's thing. So seeing him sit there and like try to implore the referee to throw a flag kind of made it worse for me. I saw the replay of the extended arm through my purple colored glasses and was pretty upset in the moment. But yeah, I mean, playing the result now, whatever. I'm fine with it. It's a borderline call either way.
Right. And if we're being honest about Marlon Humphrey, like, his game plan is probably to have the refs look at him as few times as possible during a game So of course he's not going to ask for calls because his goal is for them to never see him because he has his hands on everybody all the time. And that's
Yeah,
fine. We celebrate the Legion of Boom.
right.
We celebrate that. He's got a reputation. He pushes the limit every play, and usually and it's an advantage for him. And this play, it wasn't. And as an anti-Ravens guy, watching this drive was a real joy for me. It was a real joy to watch Marlon Humphrey get out physicaled. Um, and that was that. That was about the end of it.
Yeah, yeah, you had a little bit more joy. So, following that drive, um, the Ravens are kind of moving the ball a little bit down the field. They get a couple first downs, and Lamar throws what is kind of becoming a normal occurrence in the beginning of games, like a really, really, really egregious interception.
This might be the worst one.
The one against Jacksonville was also really bad. There's been a lot recently in the last month or so. Miles Boykin was running like a flag. I don't know if he started on that side of the field or not, but basically the corner had inside position and they were taking a deep shot to Miles. Hollywood Brown was also going deep up the seam, and it looked like maybe like the read to make would have been him. But we threw a deep ball to Miles Boykin, and rather than putting it to the sideline where Miles, a big-bodied receiver, would have the only chance at it, it was underthrown and to the inside. Just really, really bad pass.
And for the record, it's not like Miles Boykin lined up on the sideline and he had like 1 foot of real estate.
Plenty of room, yeah.
There was like 5 yards outside of Miles Boykin to lead him. Like this was a touchdown, and he threw it every direction wrong and by a great distance. Like the defender just turned around and caught it, and Miles Boykin turned around from like 3 yards behind him and was like, "What is going on here?" It was honestly, I wish I could make more fun of this, but the result was the result. And honestly, Lamar played really well after this. It was horrific. I was like, wow. I'm like, this could end up being a game that I really enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, it was very deja vu type of thing. So the Titans turned this into a 45-yard field goal, and they hit the magic 10 digit 10-point lead.
Game over, right? Game over.
I was not panicking, but I was frustrated, and I probably said some shit to Roddy about here goes Greg Roman trying to be fucking cute again. Even though it's probably unwarranted. I just want to pound the rock, man, every down. But we'll get there. And then so on the Ravens' next drive, I believe it was the next drive of consequence. Lamar made what I considered to be the play of the game for the Ravens, and he certainly had a flashier play, and maybe one that will even be on, like, if he's fortunate enough to have a long enough career and play at this level for a long time, Hall of Fame career, this will be on, like, the Hall of Fame highlight reel, the run that we'll get to. But the unsung play of this game came on a 3rd and 7. And Lamar had to buy time rolling out to the right in his own territory and find Mark Andrews for a contested catch on the sideline. And they were down 10-0, facing punting in their own territory again, and they converted a first down. And it only turned into a field goal because the drive stalled in the red zone. But to get points on that drive and start to chip back away, gain some momentum, and sustain something was really a turning point in the game. Because things could have snowballed really bad, a la last January, if that conversion didn't happen. And it's not going to be talked about, I don't think. You know, Lamar showed his willingness to be a passer again, and it turned out positively for the Ravens. And I think it was the biggest play of the game.
Yeah, two notes if you'll allow. One, sometimes when Lamar does stuff like this, it's beyond what TV crews are used to. So I didn't actually write that play down, but I remember it because it was so significant. Because honestly, they weren't really doing a lot of moving the ball up to this point, so it really felt like they were getting ready to punt again. And when he rolled out to the right, he was basically at the sideline before he threw it, which is like, you know, it's the end of the line. Like you think it could as well be a throwaway as anything else. And when he zipped it, the camera had to move so quickly, and Mark Andrews was covered, and he was lunging on the sideline, so you couldn't actually tell, if you were me, that he caught it.
Yeah.
Like, it just looked like a big mess. And so even after the play happened, I was like, you know, whatever. I don't know. And then, oh man, like that's like the kind of play that, you know, some of the mobile guys can make occasionally, but it's a very low percentage play. And since you already covered that it ended in a field goal, there was one other play in this drive that to me was personally really significant. They went back to the same play that Lamar missed and threw the interception on. And this was the drive that he hit Brown deep, and that's what got them into field goal range. Brown ran the same type of flag, and Lamar led him on that flag, and then he kind of rolled out of bounds at the 20 or whatever, and then they stalled out after. So Lamar proved that he could make the throw, make the right read, and that he was kind of back on track. And I think that that's the trend that continued.
Yeah. And one of the previous drives, Andrews dropped a third down pass. Maybe it was the first drive. So some of that, it was very reminiscent of last year's Titans game with Andrews making drops and some things like that. So it was really good to get that drive and get those points. The following Titans drive ended with a third down sack by Derek Wolfe, where the Ravens only brought 4. I want to talk about this looking forward into the playoffs. Pass rush has not been a strength of the Ravens this year, at least a pass rush that generates sacks. The defensive line as a whole had an incredible game against Derrick Henry and rushing the passer. Pernell McPhee was probably like the defensive MVP of this game. The way that he was impactful in the run game. But that led to a punt, and that punt led to the third and whatever from the 49-yard line.
9.
Scamper by third and 9 from the 49. 49-yard touchdown run by Lamar Jackson. As the week has gone by in press conferences and guys get talked to, Greg Roman brought up that they have been getting killed by this defensive look by the Titans the last 2 times that they've played them. It's a cover 7. I did some research on it. I guess it's a Nick Saban thing. He made it big. Saban and Greg Williams likes to use it. But basically it's quarters deep and like man underneath. The linebackers will play man into like the flats, and they run quarters deep. And Greg Roman said that Lamar, and he had long talks about it, and he said when you get that look, he encouraged Lamar to run. And he did. And then Lamar did things that he does to safeties who seem like they're in position and then just get blown by. And and then he beat,
Yeah,
I think it was Byard to the pylon.
Byard, who we talked about it, right? Like he's the second leading tackler on the team, and we said like, look, if this guy has to make tackles in the open field, it doesn't matter if he's a second leading tackler on the team. That's going to be a problem, and on display on that play.
Yeah, another guy, Adorey Jackson. For those of you who don't know, he wears number 25 for the Titans. And later on in the game, he gets abused pretty hard in a different manner. But he ran a 4.4 in the combine. And he had an angle on Lamar, it seemed like. And basically all he could do was try to push him as Lamar lunged for the pylon on this play. So that's something that Lamar does that no other quarterback can do, is even if you think you've schemed him right and you play him the way that you're supposed to, he can still just beat you because he's better than everybody on the field, and it's craziness.
Yeah, and if you'll allow, I had a different angle on this play, and up to this point, the Titans were really doing a good job against the Ravens on the running game. And I would extend forward to say, like, overall in this game, they actually played the run and Lamar really well.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, like, I can't emphasize enough how hard it is to defend the Ravens running game. And I'll use an example. On the first drive of the game, on 3rd and 4, the Ravens pulled 2 offensive linemen. The center backed out. Pulling means they back out and then they swing out to the side to block somebody else. The center pulled, and I believe the left guard also pulled. It was 2 guys swung, and it wasn't even a running play. Like, they do crazy things to make it look tricky, and it's not just pretending to hand the ball off to a running back or whatever, and not giving it to him or giving it to him, which is also tricky, also really tricky. So it's really difficult to do. The Titans were really doing a good job of maintaining like gap integrity. They were escorting Lamar out of bounds to the sideline, not forcing hits on him early. Sometimes he gained 6 yards, but they didn't force it. You know, they kept things under control. But we've talked about this, right? When you get to midfield, this is where it's happened. Lamar probably has 3 or 4 of these this year where they're right around midfield and he sees that gap up the middle and he takes it. And in this play, the Titans' best pass rusher, Harold Landry, number 58, he starts to crash in the middle, and the Mark Andrews knocks him. He knocks him inward, and then Fluker shoves him into, I guess, the center and another defensive lineman, and he falls. He falls off his feet. As he's getting up, he's disoriented, and he's looking for Lamar, and that's when Lamar runs past him. So, like, it just the smallest thing and it's over, right? Like, the Titans were using a very disciplined approach in the pass rush, and all it takes is, like, a good combo block that you're not expecting, and you slip off your feet for a second, and you don't know where he is, and he's gone. And, you know, some of it's good scheme and this and that, and some of it's just bad luck, and you can't, like, you just can't afford to make even a small mistake, especially in that area of the field. And it was a really good play.
Yeah, and they did a really good job of that all the way through the game. You know, they didn't really get gashed by the run very much, and it was kind of boring to watch. Landry specifically, but all the pass rushers, but Landry specifically was doing a very good job of when he'd get, like, he felt he probably had a mark. Like, if you get this far upfield, crash back down to try to, you know, maintain the pocket. And they did a really good job of it the whole first half, probably until that play. But that's all it takes is the one play. So that's a 10-10 game. And that was the score going into the half. The Ravens received the first half kickoff and really had their only good drive of the game. Their only, like, this, like, what you want to see out of the Ravens drive of the game. and since I'm naming drives after players, I call this the Patrick Ricard drive.
Hmm.
So this was a big adjustment that the Ravens made. The the Titans really were the team to patent the pack the middle of the field against the Ravens. And this was, and I think the Ravens kind of knew that that's how the Titans were going to continue to play them, and maybe they saved this until later in the game anyways. Um, but they started to hit Patrick Ricard in the flats out of the backfield, and I think he had 3 catches on this drive. And I mean, just get a full head of steam on like poor Adorey Jackson, who's trying to tackle 6'3", 311-pound defensive tackle slash fullback Patrick Ricard. And the Ravens put together a really beautiful drive, capped by a physical J.K. Dobbins run that was of similar style of how we've seen them use him in the red zone recently, with kind of the off tackle stuff coming across the face of the quarterback. And the Ravens went up 17-10.
Yeah, this was a big drive, and I actually I'm speculating that this was a halftime adjustment based on the drive in which Lamar had the big touchdown run, because before that play they ran it looked like a lateral. It was a swing pass to Hollywood Brown, and
Yeah.
it got the ball outside really quick, and it ended up being a 15-yard gain. And if you watch this drive, I agree it should be called the Ricard drive, but the way I had it down is that this drive after half started with 2 swing passes, one to Ricard and then one to Andrews to the other side. So basically a player is leaking out to the sideline, and they get it out there as quickly as possible to evacuate that middle, right? Because that's where the
Mm-hmm.
space was. It was followed by 3 running plays. Now, the Ravens have adjusted their play action or read option, read option, so that Lamar is often the one that's going up the middle and the running back goes to the outside. But they mix it up and mix it and match it. So in this 3-play sequence, they were all running plays that were read options. Lamar kept it twice and Dobbins got it once, but it was always the outside read that kept the ball. And then after that, and they were all big gains, and then there was another swing pass to Ricard after that. And it was just always these short chips to the outside. And they really took advantage of that. And I think they might have done that at halftime after seeing that Hollywood Brown play on that kind of swing pitch pass that I think made them really think that that could work, because that whole drive, it was like 7 straight plays where they basically did the same thing.
They,
um, and it worked.
yeah, they pull that Hollywood Brown pass back out a couple times. Once where he caught it on like the Ravens like 2. Like oh man, that play makes my butthole pucker. Like
Yeah, I
especially
mean,
with Hollywood, is like, oh my gosh. And
yeah.
they executed it. Hollywood even broke a tackle on one of them. Like,
Hmm.
it was great. He had a fantastic game, by the way. The Ravens don't when their offense is working how it should. The Ravens don't do a ton of passing, and it's kind of difficult for any pass catcher other than Andrews to really shine because of how Lamar likes it down the seams and the red zone threat that Andrews is. But I mean, I think other than his first game ever in that weird Miami game where Miami just stunk to high heavens, this was Hollywood's best game as a pro. And the Ravens need him to be that weapon to make any kind of run to a Super Bowl.
Yeah, they need a big play speed threat. um, I also think, like, if you're looking to see the minutia of why Lamar is such a problem for defenses, the Dobbins run doesn't look fancy. It looks like just a power run in between the tackle and the guard where he breaks some tackles. But if you see after the handoff, Lamar takes a little quick shoulder thing, step to the side, and 2 Tennessee defenders take a step in the wrong direction. and one of them's the outside linebacker, and he would have had a chance to meet Dobbins before the goal line if he wasn't worried about Lamar. So
Yeah.
Lamar can basically take defenders out of being in the play just because he exists.
And I hadn't noticed it with that much like vigor until this game. But I noticed it multiple times when he was not the one with the ball, but he'll take a step and a half very, very quickly as if he has the ball and really sell the fake. I noticed that for the first time in this game to the degree that he did it. And yeah, I mean, that's certainly a weapon, especially after he gashes you for a 49-yard run.
Right, that's the thing. Yeah, is once the big thing has happened, it's hard not to focus on it.
So I'm gonna kind of cruise control to the end of the game here, and if there's anything you want to circle back to, we can. But the Titans and Ravens trade field goals. Justin Tucker missed, I think, a 53-yard field goal.
It's right in there, yeah.
And then hit like a 51-yarder to put the Ravens up 7 at the end of the game, 20-13. That field goal followed a 4th and 2 from the Ravens 40 punt by Mike Vrabel, king of I'm a tough former linebacker and I have big balls. And it's like a historically unheard of punt with the time that was left and the score and things like that.
This was a big deal too. I'll be quick here, but like they hadn't thrown to AJ Brown in basically 2 quarters. They just hit him on a pass. Derrick Henry followed that up with his longest run of the game.
Like an 8-yard run. It was
8 yards. And that's what made it 3rd and 2. There was 10 minutes left in the game. Like this wasn't a good decision. They had a little bit of good stuff going, and it was a big mistake to give the ball back to the Ravens.
Yeah. And then, so the Ravens took like 5 to 6 more minutes off the clock. Didn't even get points. I don't think that was the field goal drive. It might have been. It might have been a 4-point game when that punt happened, actually. And then the Ravens got their field goal. Does that sound right?
I think it was that drive, but I'm just based on the amount of time left.
Yeah.
I think it was.
We'll go with that. And if you're that worried about the details, go watch the fucking replay. And then basically the Titans get the ball back, and the game is sealed by the juice man, Marcus Peters, on a play that on the face,
by the juice man,
in real time, looked like maybe it could have been called for pass interference because Khalif Raymond falls like down right in front of him. But when you watch the replay, the guy just fell down, like tripped, basically.
Yeah, I never interpreted it as a potential pass interference.
No, it's just honest. When it watching it live, when the camera pans to the right and you see like a Titans player falling down and the ball goes right to Marcus Peters, it was on alert for yellow laundry. So Marcus Peters returns it a little bit and makes a beeline for the Titans logo. And
totally unplanned.
Marlon Humphrey, when asked about it after the game, said, "I didn't even realize we were on the logo. We just follow our teammate to wherever he decides to celebrate." Marlon Humphrey, by the way, was sitting on the logo when by the end of this.
I never want to hear anything about Juju ever again. I don't care about history. I don't care about any of it. Like, I don't.
We just fundamentally disagree about this. So I didn't realize, and the players gave some credence to this, I guess, last week before this game. that the players during the last game had no idea what even happened between Harbaugh and the Titans players before the game, the last game. But yeah, I mean, yeah, this was a direct response to that. Will Compton, who is a career journeyman linebacker, who hosts a pretty interesting podcast called Bussin' with the Boys with Taylor Lewan. If you're ever down to listen to it, I can't right now because all the Titans propaganda is too much for me still. But he said that since he's been with Tennessee, they break it down at midfield before every game, and that it was nothing purposeful. But I mean,
Yeah, and this is why you don't just let the media give you a narrative, right? The logo isn't always a significant thing.
I mean,
It
John
was
Harbaugh sure thought it was, though, right? I mean,
fine. The Harbaughs are like idiots when it comes to whatever they interpret all the time with their level of competitiveness. They make up things. That's their level.
that's fine. You
Like,
know what? I am probably closer to a Harbaugh in mentality than not.
you are a Harbaugh.
And so I'm here for it. I probably would have preferred it be slightly more subtle than like there was some guy stomping on the Titans logo and like kicking at it. It was very reminiscent of Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker Devin Bush in college when Michigan and Michigan State had that big game and he was out there pregame like kicking up the logo at midfield. It was very reminiscent of some of that.
In college, you got to do
Devin
that
Bush has
stuff.
been a consummate professional since he's been in the National Football League. I'll give him that.
Thank you. I just don't want to hear anything about Juju. I don't care. I don't personally care about any of it. I think when the players care, it makes probably the game better. So it's fine. Like, they're responding, whatever. I just don't ever want to hear about respect ever again. Like, ever again. Because this was a deliberate act of disrespect. Like, so if you're down for it, that's fine. Any of you Ravens people, even really long time Ravens people, even the longest time Ravens people. I'm talking to you, Roddy, from the beginning. I just don't want to hear about it. Like, I don't want to hear about it. Juju did a TikTok dance. It had nothing to do with anybody but him and his 12-year-old fans that play video games. Like, it just didn't. So it's over. I would rather focus now on why Tannehill threw to a guy named Khalif Raymond that I've never heard to when A.J. Brown was streaking up the left sideline 3 yards behind the defender, probably for a touchdown. Like, golly, it was there. Your best receiver in single coverage, like, you know, in that type of situation that a quarterback has a vision and they don't deviate from the vision when they see what's happening on the field.
Yeah.
They believe what they imagine is supposed to happen. And you know what? Khalif Raymond maybe makes that catch if he doesn't fall down. But man, single coverage with a physical monstrosity like A.J. Brown, that should be your first read. Like, it just should. And if you're looking at Khalif Raymond, it's to keep the safety from following A.J. Brown. Like, that's why you're looking at Khalif Raymond. So, yeah, that was basically the end of the game. The Ravens held on 20-13, and then the Ravens continued their, respect by Lamar running directly off the field and trying to get the rest of the team to not shake anyone's hand, which is fine. Apparently that was also a response. But again,
Yeah.
don't hear
In the
anything
first
about
quarter,
respect.
Lamar
Ever.
gets flipped off by Malcolm Butler. These teams don't like each other.
It's fine. I just don't want
I'm
to hear
here-
about respect.
I'm here
I just
for
don't
it.
want to hear about it. Yeah.
You will never
Love it.
hear me tell anybody that they should respect their opponent more. Those
All right.
words those words will not come out of my mouth.
Anything else you want to talk about in this game? 30,000 foot view, anything like that?
Derrick Henry had 2.2 yards carry on 18 carries. This is your king, your rushing champion. Everybody wanted to poo-poo me when I said that the Ravens didn't have Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams the first time they played the Titans. Like, that doesn't matter. Turns out it matters. Some, at least.
Yeah. My final note from a 30,000 foot view is that I just like the way the Ravens take advantage of their personnel. Like, if you watched the way they schemed um, their defense during the game, on first and second down, they always had like three linebackers, like 5 yards back, planning gaps to shoot for the running game. And on third down, they usually had like between 9 and 10 guys on the line of scrimmage. And it made their coverages really hard to read and their blitzes really hard to figure out for Tannehill. And on third down, the Ravens did a pretty good job of getting off the field. So it helps when you have two really elite corners that you can leave like that and not, because that means people have to run back. It's going to be hard to help deep. But that's what they have. So they're scheming based on their personnel. And I thought it was good and it worked. And congratulations, good win.
Yeah. Yeah, this was definitely a coordinator game for me. The Ravens coordinators, I think, just really outclassed the Titans coordinators in this game. And that's what it came down to.
Well, speaking of respect and bulletin board material and outclassing, should we move on to the other AFC North game?
Yeah. The final game of the Super Wildcard Weekend.
Heavily favored Steelers playing against a team with no head coach or Pro Bowl left guard.
Pro Bowl corner.
Yep. Denzel Ward, forgot about that. Really all pro, maybe even. He's really good. The Steelers lost this game 48-37. Let's get that right out of the way. And if you'll bear with me, I would like to talk about this game based on the 5 stages of grief.
I would love that.
The first stage of grief is denial. And for me, that all started right before kickoff when you and Justin started telling me how, because the Browns were wearing orange pants and a white jersey, that meant something bad for the Steelers. And I laughed and I laughed and I laughed. And then on the first play of the game, Marquise Pouncey snaps the ball over Ben Roethlisberger's head
to the moon
in a Two Stooges looking debacle. He and James Conner chase it and look at each other and look back at the defense and look at everything. And to me, it looked like James Conner was maybe trying not to take Ben's legs out when he dove for the ball. And it took a weird bounce right as it slowed down, actually backwards, and he missed it. And then Myles Garrett accidentally kicked it into the end zone, and it was an accident. No, I'm not being a dick or anything here. It was an accident, and then the Browns recovered it. So I believe that play took 13 seconds, and the Browns were up 7-0. That was denial. Do you have anything to add to the very opening sequence of the game?
Nope. I hardly even realized that the game had started yet, and we got a text to the group chat, and it was just an exclamation from not a Steelers fan, like, oh my. And that's when I put the game on to see replays, to see like the Browns lining up for an extra point and replays of this snap.
Yeah. So Marquise Pouncey, if you listen to this podcast or are a pretty involved Steelers fan, has had problems with his snaps over the last few years. He is not a Pro Bowl center. We explained that last week, but he hasn't been doing this very much. So this has been a feature of the last month and a half or month, or at least of Steeler football, where they don't necessarily have a singular problem, but every single possible problem they have seems to creep up. And we hadn't had this one yet, so I guess we were overdue. So at that point, I was in denial of what was happening. But that was short because I entered the second stage of grief, which is anger. On the next Steeler drive, Carl Joseph beat Juju, who was lined up next to the line of scrimmage, and Myles Garrett beat Chukwuma Okorafor, who is our right tackle, and that's not going to ever be a surprise when that happens. And Ben Roethlisberger got scared and maybe wet his pants a little bit, and he tried to dump a ball off to Benny Snell, who had just kind of leaked out. This is a I can't express how routine of a throw this is, even in circumstances, especially in circumstances in which you're being rushed. That's the time that you do it. He threw the ball over Benny Snell's head and into the hands of MJ Stewart. And I had to read that because I don't know who that is. It's
Yeah.
some sort of backup. And that was at midfield. So the Browns have the ball at midfield. And I don't know what down it was. It doesn't matter. Fucking golly, it doesn't matter. And Jarvis Landry goes into motion from the right side, and he runs a sort of. It's not even really a route.
Yeah, it
He's
was
sort of
like
like
a.
he's like drifting outside, and he catches the ball with like Mike Hilton in basically off coverage, and then he sort of leans outside. And Mike Hilton, I watched these plays on Game Pass. So if you don't think I have a threshold for paying people, you don't know
Yeah.
me. I rewatch this stuff. So Mike Hilton looks like an idiot because he lunges outside and Jarvis jukes inside. If you look at the play on game like coach's film, there's nobody on the outside of there. If Mike Hilton gets beat outside, Terrell Edmonds never has the chance to look like an absolute buffoon trying to tackle him. There's no one left. So he does what I think was the right thing to do, which is to shelter him inside, if not make the tackle. And then Terrell Edmonds also just looks like an idiot. He had a terrible game. He's going to come back up. And Jarvis Landry scores a 40-yard touchdown. So it's now 14-0. And I'm pissed because I have staked my reputation on this podcast saying Terrell Edmonds is a good tackler. And he looked like a JV player on that play. It was terrible. And this is a mess. Do you have anything to add? I'm upset already.
Nope.
The good radio. Shake your head. So the Steelers get the ball back, and they get to a 3rd and 1, which has been a big bugaboo for the Steelers this year. And they try a fullback dive with Derek Watt, who's had some injuries. They signed him for a few $1 million a year, thinking this is a great special teams player. He's our next Roosevelt Nix. He's a Watt. Everything's great. And he gets stuffed on 3rd and 1. And oh my God, what happened here? Oh yeah, Chubb had another 20-yard run. So we talked about they punted. They punted because they failed on the 3rd and 1. So that made me mad because the Steelers stink at short yardage.
Mm-hmm.
And the Browns just like dominated the Steelers front. We talked about how Cam Hayward was supposed to like crush this left guard. I can't remember his name. Hunt, maybe? Yeah, it was Hunt, number 68, that played left guard. He really did a nice job. Like, whoever he was guarding,
Yeah.
he was getting to the second level. And, like, any running play that you watch the Browns do in this game, basically, like, they're getting offensive linemen to the second level. Donovan Peoples-Jones is getting involved, making nice blocks. Like, Austin Hooper's doing a good job. It's just like nobody is making a play. Like the Browns are always making it so that they have just as many blockers as the Steelers have defenders, and nobody is getting off their block. So Chubb has a 20-yard run, and then Hunt has an 11-yard touchdown run where it looks like the Steelers are, I mean, they look drunk or like flabbergasted, like they don't even get it. They're like,
Yeah.
what is happening here? The tackling on it was terrible. I think Vince Williams missed that tackle. Like, Dude, this guy was leading the league in tackles behind the line of scrimmage before he got
Yeah.
hurt.
I think it was Spillane's face that got ran through on the goal line because I wrote down
Yeah,
Hunt greater than Spillane. And
yeah,
this is a man who met Derrick Henry in the hole earlier in the season. A man with a head full of concrete. So props to Kareem Hunt on that one.
yeah. Spillane was coming off of injury, and I don't know. I don't know what was going on. He was healthy enough to play, but he did not have his best game, and yeah, so he gets run over. So it's 21-0. Oh boy! So the Steelers get the ball back, and Ben gets a little bit saucy. They have a 2nd and 20 because Matt Filer had a holding call. Matt Filer, who was playing instead of rookie Kevin Dotson, who was actually doing a really nice job and maybe should have played, but they put Matt Filer back in the starting lineup because the Steelers, they don't take people's starting jobs away for injuries. So Ben on 2nd and 20 could have thrown an underneath crossing route to Juju. It was wide open, but he saw Deontay Johnson coming across and he tried to fit it in there. Myles Garrett did a nice job of not rushing. He dropped back and actually jumped up. I don't know if that impacted how Ben threw the ball, but it ended up being high, a little bit behind Deontay. So I don't know, if you want to get uppity about it, a number one wide receiver, a star wide receiver, probably makes the catch. He got two hands on the ball and he didn't catch it. So many people that don't like context, which would basically be all of our friends, would say that's enough. Two hands on the ball, you catch it every time. Um, but he didn't. And it deflected straight into the arms of, you know what? I don't care. My handwriting is small. It deflected into the arms of the safety. I think it was actually Sheldrick Redwine. So that, if you're counting, is Ben's second or third interception at this point. Second. I think it's his second interception.
Yep.
And the Browns score again. I didn't write down the details of that drive. If you want to hear about them, you're just not going to hear it from me. And at that point, it's 28-0. And if you're wondering, Chad, you haven't been telling me like when was halftime? What were the adjustments? This is the first quarter. It's 28-0, and it is the end of the first quarter. It's still the first quarter. It didn't even end until the Steelers got the ball again. Like, it's 28-0. I can't express how upset I am at this point, Joey. Like, this is my team. They're not doing anything. Like, nobody looks like they're playing. Not one player. Nobody looks like they're doing anything good. Mike Hilton's a lame in coverage. Ben's throwing all the bad interceptions he throws. The offensive line's getting penalties. The defensive line can't even beat backups. Like, it's terrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible. Did
Yeah.
you have? Well, yeah,
And the biggest liability that the Browns had coming into this was no Kevin Stefanski, right? Because that's the big difference between last year and this year. Kevin Stefanski, calling plays for Baker, this and that. So everybody knows the first 15, right? That's your scripted plays. That is Stefanski's imprint on this game. You know, no matter how much he can coach up the special teams coach about who was the fill-in head coach for this game, about, you know, crunch time decisions and how he likes to manage a game and this and that, or Alex Van Pelt on what he looks for when he's calling things and complimentary plays, all that stuff. The first 15 is what Kevin Stefanski had control of in this game. The Browns were up 28-0 before they ran 15 offensive plays. So
yeah.
I mean, it went as well as it possibly could have for a Browns team that was set up to just be a ship without a rudder, you know. But the Steelers allowed them to really get into this game and then build this huge lead. Which
Yeah, the Steelers were the Panama Canal. They just guided them right across. They filled up the things and lifted the ship up and moved it and all the way across to the till they made it to the Pacific.
Yep.
Um, Jesus Christ. So that basically ends the anger stage. It's 28-0 after the first quarter, and we enter the bargaining stage of grief. And when it was 28-0, at this point, we haven't really talked about the Steelers' offense, but when Ben wasn't throwing interceptions, they were moving the ball acceptably. Cleveland, basically the whole game, you might say it's because they were up by a lot, but it's basically what they were doing from the start of the game. They're playing like pretty over the top. They had gotten beat the week before on a number of deep plays, so there was a lot of underneath stuff. But Ben wasn't just throwing the 2-yard pass. He was hitting 8-yard, 12-yard, 5-yard, whatever. And frankly, the running game was acceptable by Steelers standards. A lot of 3-4 yard stuff, which like that's plenty. Like for the way this team works, it's plenty. It's not good. I'm not saying it's good. It's enough. So I was thinking like, dude, if Ben just like stops throwing it to the other team and Marquise Pouncey doesn't like score touchdowns actively for them, I think the Steelers can score like 35 points. Like I still think that they can get to that, like without even anything crazy. If you talk about a couple turnovers, maybe even more. So I'm starting to bargain. I'm starting to, like just need a little bit of a bound, right? And this is what happens as I'm transitioning from anger to bargaining. Steelers have the ball in the second quarter, and Ben tries to run one of his quick screen passes. And number 96, I'm reading again. It's important that you know I'm reading because this is another backup. Vincent Taylor jumps up. Have you ever heard of Vincent Taylor?
Nope.
No one's heard of Vincent Taylor. Nobody. He deflects the pass, and then Porter Gustin dives like he's Julio Jones and catches the freaking ball. And you're just like, what is going on here? I'm honestly, like, I'm not even mad anymore because, like, look, Ben Roethlisberger, they said in the game, like, he has the most deflected passes this year because defensive lines know that he's going to throw the ball quickly. They jump and get their hands up. It's just like a fluke. It's a fluke interception. It's his third interception of the game. It's the second quarter. You're down 28-0. And it's just like, I mean, can anything just good happen? I'm pleading. I don't know if pleading and bargaining count together, but I'm just like, please. Like, I still think that if we just stop getting remarkably unlucky, like we can score 30 points. Like we can do it. We're driving the ball. So they get the ball back and they drive. They drive all the way down, and with about 2 minutes left, they get down to the Cleveland 2-yard line. And God bless the Steelers, it only takes them 3 tries, but they get that darn ball into the end zone to go down 28-7. 3 tries to get 2 yards. That's right. And you're thinking, okay, we just get to halftime here, and we're on our way to 35. And this is a key drive, and I should probably walk you through it, but I don't have the heart. This is one of the times that the Steelers defense really dropped the ball. They had a lot of unfortunate circumstances in this game, but frankly, overall, time of possession wasn't egregious. Like, they should have had the energy and the will to do it. They gave up a 1 minute and 10-second drive for a touchdown. Let's see if I even wrote down anything important here. Oh, nobody guards Chubb.
Yeah, Chubb had a big screen pass on this drive.
They ignored him. It was just he leaked out in the flat, and everybody flowed deep on the vertical routes, and he just got like a free 20 yards. But they executed their offense well. The Steelers never did anything in the running game or from the line of scrimmage really to impede Baker's time or his reads. So instead of it being 28-7 at halftime, the Browns take 1 minute, and it's 35-7. Now, fortunately, the Steelers' defense was so inept, they left 30 seconds on the clock. And to prove my point, that's all the time the Steelers needed to go get a field goal. Like,
Mm-hmm.
they were moving the ball. They didn't have problems moving the ball even down the field. They completed a few like 17-yard passes to get in field goal range real quick and enter the half 35-10. So I'm still thinking like we are still in the amount of points the Steelers can score. Like very much reasonable that the Steelers can get into the mid 30s without anything crazy happening.
Mm-hmm.
Anything. Halftime. Thus, we enter the fourth stage of grief. Depression. So the defense, and you wouldn't think this would be depression. You'd think this would still be bargaining, but I'm kind of going to gloss over some stuff. So the defense forces a few straight 3-and-outs and punts. The only time they really have success in the game is early in the second half. They did a lot of blitzing, and they sped things up for Baker, and it just stopped really working as well. And they moved the ball. They score a couple touchdowns, and the second touchdown is really where it becomes a big deal because it's 35-22 when, what was it? 4th and 5. So it is 4th and 5, 4th and goal on the 5-yard line. The Steelers go for it. They score a touchdown. Juju, much maligned Juju, makes a great play where he is thrown, the ball's thrown behind him towards where the defender is, and he's able to reel it in, score that touchdown. And I hate to do math here, but it's 35-22. You're down 13. If you get a 2-point conversion, you're down 11, which is a field goal, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion, meaning a 2-possession game. Mike Tomlin, this is for all the Mike Tomlin haters out there. Cheers to you. Sip beer here. Mike Tomlin doesn't do math. He just doesn't do it. He doesn't care about math. He doesn't care about probability. So he kicks the extra point to go down 13. You're just like, dude, you just went for it on 4th and 5 to get the touchdown. Like, if you care about the number of possessions, like what? Like, I don't care if you're not good in short yardage. Like, you just have to get good to win a Super Bowl, right? Like, you got to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm sad. Like, I'm like, dude, this team, it's not even doing the things it needs to do. Like, you are down 28-0. You have to do everything ultra aggressively to win at this point. You cannot do half measures. You just can't do it. So they're down 35-23. They're down by 12 points. And honestly, if I was going to take a break from my grief, this is kind of around when it happened because the Steelers actually get the ball back down by 12. And they start driving, and they get pretty close to midfield. And I'll look quickly here. They get to their own 46-yard line. And they get a 4th-down-1 from their own 46-yard line with, I don't know, not much. It's like the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a real game right now. The Browns haven't had a substantial drive all second half.
Right.
They're scoring at will, and they choose to punt. Now, at the time, it didn't really offend me that they punted. The Steelers' defense hadn't allowed a really drive in the second half. What did you think when they punted, or did you care, or did you?
I think this was like a lifetime achievement punt for the Steelers. It's been months of short yardage woes, and we kind of already saw with the extra point, like you said, the Browns hadn't really been moving the ball. And I think if you want to spin it, you can spin it as like a vote of confidence in the defense to get the ball back. It's still only a 2-score game. Um, it's not too deep into the fourth quarter when this happened, I don't think.
No, it
So,
was right at the beginning. Yeah,
yeah.
it was the beginning. There's still a good 12 or
So,
13
I'm
minutes left at
okay
least.
with it. I don't love it on a scale from Mike Vrabel to 10. It's like right in the middle for me.
I thought that the lack of 2-point conversion on the previous scoring drive was worse, but I wanted them to go for it because again, it's like, dude, you are pushing this team. Like this is a team that
Yeah.
you are the big brother to. Like in every opportunity to push them, you have to do it. And that's regardless of the circumstance. In this game, you were down 28 freaking points. You need them tense. You need the tension as high as possible. But I didn't hate it. But here's the thing. It had been 3 or 4 drives, and guess what? The Browns adjusted. The Steelers were blitzing a lot. The Browns got to about midfield, and they called what even a fairly average football fan would say is the perfect anti-blitz call, and that is a screen pass, which they ran to one Nick Chubb, who I believe this is the second play that I was going to call out Terrell Edmonds. Nah, maybe it wasn't. Doesn't matter. He ran 40 yards for a touchdown. So this is the fifth stage of grief, and it's acceptance. This made the score 42-23.
Mm-hmm.
There's probably still 10 minutes left in the game. But as I had said before, I felt like without anything crazy happening, the Steelers could get into the mid 30s. 42, it wasn't the time. That's a 19-point game with about 10 minutes left. It's just not, the odds are no longer reasonable. And so we enter the stage of acceptance. And the Steelers continue to play. The one thing I will say, and there's a lot in this game to criticize Mike Tomlin for, and also the coordinators if we look at it from 30,000 feet, which I don't know is really necessary after this. But they keep playing. The Steelers, Ben has a really nice play where he looks off the safety and hits Chase Claypool for like a 30-yard touchdown on
Mm-hmm.
a skinny post. Really nice play. That gets it to 42-29. Um, why 42-29? Only 6? Because this time, with the chance to go down 11, they do go for 2. Who knows what he's thinking? I don't know what he's thinking. Nobody knows what he's thinking. That's why he wears the aviators. He's a mystery wrapped in enigma, or vice versa. I think I did it backwards. It doesn't matter. This was a very infuriating game for Mike Tomlin. All of his weirdness came out, and none of it was good. The only thing that didn't happen was a missed challenge, but
Yeah.
the game wasn't close enough. And I think I stopped really writing things down accurately here, but they were down 13. The Steelers got the ball back, and at this point, Ben threw one of his other most common interceptions, which is he decides where he's going to throw the ball before the snap, and he doesn't notice a linebacker sinking into coverage. And in this time, it was one of our favorite TV names from way back in the beginning of the year.
Taki Taki.
Sion Taki Taki for Ben's 4th interception of the game. I think that resulted in a field goal from the Browns. So at this point, they're up 48 to whatever. Ben throws one more touchdown. Game over, man. They just really shat the bed, dude. It's really frustrating to watch your team lose. You're competitive. You don't like watching them lose ever. I'm a little competitive. I'm frustrated because this team, and we'll talk about it more maybe North team or something. This team has like a remarkable number of free agents that are going to leave because of their cap situation.
Mm-hmm.
This was like really a last opportunity to be competitive. If you remember the beginning of the season, I sort of said that even though the Ravens were heavily favored in the division, the Steelers' perspective was that they were competing for a Super Bowl with this team, and this was one of their last real good opportunities to do it. and they really overachieved from that point to the middle of the season, and then they really didn't. They dropped it. But I will say this: after that point, the Browns really did play well. The Browns line played really well, particularly their offensive line. They made big, long drives, which I know, Joey,
Yeah.
that's what matters to you. You like to see a nice long drive when you're going
Yeah.
to talk about team dominance. That's what you're always looking for. Like, you want to see a good long drive. So they did it. They did it twice to the Steelers at points when there was maybe an opportunity for the Steelers to get back. They had a nice, long, big game killing drive. But the other side is that they had 17 points off of a total of 19 yards um, gained. So, and they won by 12. So it's frustrating because as bad as the Steelers look, they can play like 2 quarters of good football and be as good as a playoff team. Now they wouldn't beat the best teams doing that. Um, it just sucks. They were a fun team playing when they played well, and they just didn't represent themselves well in what will be the last time they look like that team. So I'm a little sad, man.
Do you still, and I know this is probably playing the result a little bit, do you still stand by resting week 17? Or is hindsight.
Yeah, nothing that happened in the game was because they didn't play for a week. Like Marquise Pouncey has snapped shotgun. Dude, Ben plays in the shotgun every snap. Like Marquise Pouncey has snapped shotgun like 45,000 times in his career. Like 1 week of game snaps doesn't change anything. Um, I honestly think it matters more when you have a bye week. If you miss 2 full weeks and your practicing is janky because of that, like that's when I feel like it matters, and I think you should play that last week because you have the bye week already. So no, I don't care about it. I mean, yeah, maybe it did impact it. I'm not going to deny that, but I don't regret that decision in any way. I think the Steelers had every reason to be prepared for this game, and they just got they they hurt themselves, and the Browns played well when they needed to in the moments of the game that they had to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think for
they
me it was just kind of a classic. The Steelers came out flat, and the Browns brought the intensity and the energy, and it took a little while for the Steelers to match it. Um, and they did a little bit. James Washington was a big part of sparking some of that in the first half.
Yeah, there was a drive. It might have been their touchdown drive where he had a few catches, and I remember thinking, okay, so there is at least one player on the Steelers roster that is
Yeah,
playing. It
yeah,
was him. He was the first player that decided that he was going to be a part of the game. Um,
yeah. Just a tough loss. And I think the player I feel happiest for this win for the Browns is Jarvis Landry. If we can all remember back to Hard Knocks, Jarvis's first year, and he gave that big speech about like the the culture of the team and everything. Um, I'm missing I'm missing the word. Everything being contagious, like giving effort in practice and the way that you carry yourself, like winning is contagious. Um, I mean, he's like Baker's probably the face of that football team, but like Jarvis Landry is like the heart of that team, and they've got a tough row to hoe coming up, but it was I mean, it's historic for this franchise. First playoff win in like over 20 years.
yeah, and if you're into poetic justice, like this is what the Steelers deserved. They've done this to the Browns like a bunch of times over the last 20 years, where they got coaches fired. They did, they
Yeah.
the last two times the Browns made the playoffs, which is like twice
They
over like
lost to the
30
Steelers. Yeah.
years, they lost to the Steelers. So, you know, it's good for them. It's good for them to get this. It's big. Like, dude,
Yeah.
we know. Like, when the Steelers beat the Ravens in the playoffs or whatever, like, it's huge. And you celebrate
Yeah.
it for a long time, and it means a lot. And it should. Like, it shouldn't make it mean less that I'm saying the Steelers didn't play their best game or whatever. Like, look, like teams don't always play their best game. You play the game that you're supposed to play. Like that's I'm never gonna apologize because the Ravens outgained the Steelers this year when they lost. Like, dude, no one gives a shit. Like, so no one gives a shit when I say that Ben Roethlisberger also threw for 500 yards. Like, and he's the second quarterback ever to do it. Like, it wasn't good enough because he also stunk.
Yeah.
And hey, like that freaking dude Porter Gustin made a heck of a grab on that tip ball. Like they made plays, so
Yeah.
it's a good win. And should we talk about their chances against Kansas City?
Yeah. Yeah. Denzel Ward got activated, I think, today. So that's really, really, really good for them. Um, but probably not enough. Uh, the Chiefs are really overwhelming. I will say that the Chiefs have a tendency to kind of sleepwalk for long stretches of a game. We saw it in the playoffs last year, but I mean, we even saw it in this Pittsburgh game. If there's not an astounding turnover margin in favor of the Browns, this defense is just straight up not good enough to stop the Chiefs. And I think that the Browns can score enough to hang with them for a little bit, but the Chiefs' defense isn't shit. Like I think eventually the Chiefs will pull away pretty comfortably in this game. But
Yeah, the for the Browns, because of the way their offense works, which is, it's dependent on the running game and play action and stuff, it's like imperative that the game script go in their favor, which means they have to hang around.
yeah,
And because, like you said, there isn't a defense that matches up well with Kansas City. They have two guys that had 1,200 yards receiving and 10 touchdowns. And for the record, I'm like rounding down here for Travis
yeah,
Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. Um, so they're absurd. They're uncoverable. Like, if you think that Denzel Ward can just be left alone on Tyreek Hill, then you don't get it. Like, he's really great, and I'm not trying to bash Denzel Ward, but that's just not how it works with Tyreek Hill. And if you think that Cleveland has a safety that can help Denzel Ward, well, you haven't watched their games or listened to us. Like that's how that works.
yeah,
So that's a big problem. And Travis Kelsey's the same way. Like he can stretch the field, he can be in the seam. Like these are all times when you need bracketing coverage or like really good safety help or something awesome to happen for yourself, and they just don't. Um, they have three other receivers that average over 10 yards a catch and had multiple touchdown catches and 400 yards over the course of the season. So Sammy Watkins, Mecole Hardman, who's the other one? Demarcus Robinson.
Robinson.
Like,
Yeah,
it doesn't even matter like which one it is. Like, they're all so good if they need to be. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is practicing again. So if you're thinking like, well, at least we don't have to worry about that, like, well, you do. So he's gonna be there. So the way I figure it, like best case scenario for the Browns, they still need to score 30 to 35 points to win this game. So they
mm-hmm.
need to be thinking like we need to be offensively on point. I think they can.
Yeah,
I think that the strength of the Chiefs defense, like they're not great. Like they have two pretty darn good pass rushers. Chris Jones is a defensive tackle, and Frank Clark is a defensive end. That they're both pretty good, really quite good. 6 and 7.5 sacks. They get some sacks. They're good. They can disrupt things from the line. Really, no linebackers to worry about on the Chiefs, in my opinion. And the next playmakers that you care about are the safeties. They've got a guy named Tyrann Mathieu. Mathieu? Is that how you pronounce it?
Matthew?
Matthew? Matthew? Walter Mathieu. Tyrann Mathieu. He's their strong safety. And then is it Chris Sorensen? Daniel Sorensen.
There you
Daniel
go.
Sorensen. My bad. Those guys, here's the things they do a lot. They tackle everybody. They have like over 100 tackles or whatever. They have lots of tackles. They both intercept the ball plenty. And they both force fumbles. Like, if you're looking for turnovers, and like, they're all over the field. So if they have a good read on the play action situation, they're going to probably create turnovers in this game. And if you can fool them, the Browns are probably going to score a lot of points because the Chiefs linebackers and corners, they're not anything to write home about. So it's really going to be the play of those safeties. So that's who you want to watch on the defense and see where they run and see if Baker throws it somewhere else or runs it somewhere else. So, but I think
Jack Conklin and B.J. Goodson didn't practice today still, but Stefanski said they're day-to-day. Conklin left the Steelers game with a hamstring thing.
Ooh, that's not good. I forgot about that.
And I don't remember what Goodson's injury is.
Yeah, I didn't even talk about all the injuries on the line. Steelers still didn't get any sacks, which is crazy because with the backups, they got 4 a week ago.
Yeah.
Like,
Cassius Marsh ended up playing. Yeah. It's in the past. Cassius Marsh. Fun thing about Cassius Marsh, he actually had like a book full of Magic the Gathering cards stolen from his car when he was in like rookie training camp with whoever, the Seahawks or somebody like that. That became news. Weird story. Cassius Marsh. He's got cool tattoos.
We love that about him.
Yeah, he looks good in black and yellow.
He looks good right before the snap.
So, yeah, there's a 10-point spread last I saw on this Chiefs-Browns game. And I think depending on how quickly the Chiefs can kind of like flip the serious switch, because I think they've just kind of been dicking around the last month or so with the regular season. They should win pretty easily here, but I'd expect a high-scoring affair.
I'll take the Browns against the spread, though. I don't think that Kansas City's run defense is good enough, and they've also played a lot of really close games this year.
Yeah, they have.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this is one of those work themselves into it sort of situations. I think that their offense is quick strike and capable enough that there's so many scenarios in which Kansas City still wins and very few scenarios in which the Browns can stay with the game plan that they have to have in order to win.
Yeah.
That I'm picking the Chiefs to absolutely win, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns can keep it to within 10.
All right.
It's the playoffs. People tense up a little bit.
That's right. All right. And then I think that's
that game, by the
Sunday.
way, is Sunday at 3:05. Yeah.
There you go. And Saturday at 8:15, we have the Ravens traveling to Orchard Park, New York, to take on the Flying Josh Allens, the Buffalo Bills. These teams played each other last year in Buffalo. It was a close game.
Yeah, it was a sloppy mess, if I remember correctly.
Sean McDermott is a very good coach. And he's a defensive-minded coach, and so they'll have something for Greg Roman and Lamar and this offense for sure. You know, they'll have something cooked up. What it was last year was defensive tackles were holding the center from pulling on run plays. That was caught on tape like multiple times. They were holding Patrick McCarry from getting to his assignments, pulling on some of the sweep motion type stuff.
It's a good idea.
So they are a savvy group. The defense has kind of underperformed this year. They were very good last year, and this year they really haven't been super. Uh, but the offense took a monster step this year. Josh Allen and the addition of Stephon Diggs. We haven't really talked about the Bills very much this year.
No, they played the Steelers.
Yeah,
That's when we did it.
they're very good. So I think this will be a really close game. It's like a 2-point spread right now. Buffalo's favored by 2. There's expected to be at least snow on the ground for this game.
So what's that mean? It's going to snow 3 days before, and they're going to refuse to shovel it.
No, it's supposed to snow on Saturday. Um, Lamar's never played in the snow before. He's a Miami kid. Went to Louisville for college. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I don't think there's anything. I think the Bills are a little one-dimensional on offense, as are the Ravens, obviously. And so Jimmy Smith, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, and whether we like it or not, Anthony Averett. It's them. You know, the spotlight's going to be on those guys. Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, not Zay Jones. They have another Isaiah McKenzie. Like, they've got a lot of players that I actually like a lot.
That tight end Knox makes
Dawson Knox. So it's just going to be a really fun game. I don't have too many predictions. I think both teams are pretty balanced, offense to defense. I think the Bills' offense is better than the Ravens' offense, but the Ravens' defense is better. So it should be a really fun game. I don't have a ton of analysis on it. I'm just kind of just nervous energy about it.
I think that the matchups favor the Ravens on all fronts, and I'll tell you why. On defense, the Bills' strength is really in their secondary. So they've got Tre'Davious White and Josh Norman, who's past his peak, but he's still a guy at corner, and then Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde are their safeties. They're really good playmakers. They're good at supporting the run, but they're really they really limit teams in the passing game really effectively. Which obviously we've talked enough about the Ravens to know that nobody cares. You can put anybody on Miles Boykin.
Sweet.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So every week I bring up the middle linebacker that I say is going to matter, and I'm not sure that I'm ever right, but I'm just going to keep doing it. And if I was ever going to be right, it could be this week, because the Bills' middle linebacker of note is Tremaine Edmonds. He's number 48, and he's really fast and strong. He's one of the, if you drew the curve of what the testing numbers are for these guys' athletic traits, he's way at the top everywhere: strength, speed, agility, whatever. So if you're looking for a guy that can maybe even miss a read or two and still catch a run to the outside or make a quick adjustment because of all the fakes and weird stuff the Ravens are doing in the run game, he might be the guy that can survive all those fakes. The ones he diagnoses, he can get to early, maybe even tackle for a loss, which you don't see often with the Ravens because they're just all over the place with their fakes. And when he makes a bad read, he might be able to recover from it. But overall, the Bills' run defense is bad. It's in the 20s in the NFL in yards per carry. And if you look at Pro Football Reference, they have a yards or a points expected per play, basically. And the Bills' rush defense is terrible. Most defenses lose points on rush defense. but they lose more than most. They're pretty bad. So I'm just like not convinced that the Bills' strengths line up well. They do have a couple of pretty good defensive tackles, Ed Oliver and Quentin Jefferson. And I actually think even though I highlight middle linebackers, it's those defensive tackles that keep the pocket shape and dictate the pocket shape that might be a bigger deal in kind of controlling what Lamar is able to do, not so much on the read options and the designed runs, but on the broken plays, the plays that turn into disasters for his opponents. And Ed Oliver and Quentin Jefferson are both, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
Ed Oliver is the bigger name, but they both have kind of similar production this year. So yeah, I just don't think that their strengths match up really nicely. And similarly on offense, the Bills have two kind of highly drafted running backs, Devin Singletary and Zach Moss, but Zach Moss doesn't look like he's going to play. Um, and they don't run the ball that well.
Mm-mm.
And that's where the Ravens seem to struggle. And frankly, the Bills, in my opinion, they don't have a ton of wide receivers. They have two. They
Yeah.
have Cole Beasley and they have Stephon Diggs. And they've both had really nice seasons, but neither of them have the physical characteristics to give the Ravens defensive backs problems. Like you can put Marlon Humphrey or Marcus Allen or really whatever on any of them and they, Stephon Diggs isn't physical, right? Like Marlon
Right.
Humphrey can bully him. Marcus Peters can do clever things, play off, like read the route. Like, I don't think that it's not like AJ Brown, where I was
Yeah.
like, dude, he's just like he can do problematic things. Like I'm nervous, and Josh Allen, he makes weird mistakes. Like he makes weird mistakes, and the Ravens are the defense that waits on that stuff. So to me, it's going to be all about the Ravens blitz scheme
Mm.
and how Josh Allen handles it. We've only seen it once this year in the AFC North. He adjusted to the Steelers blitz scheme really well in the second half of the Steelers game, and that's when the Bills pulled away. But if we're really being honest, the Steelers blitz scheme is nowhere near as diverse as the Ravens because
Yeah.
they do a lot of four-man rushes, basically, like they don't, where the Ravens are bringing all sorts of crazy stuff. So that's what I'm looking for. Like, does Josh Allen read the blitz well? Because if he does, he'll have opportunities to make plays with his feet. And that's when he'll find the open receivers. Because otherwise, I don't think it's going to happen for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the marquee matchup in the game is like Wink Martindale versus Brian Dayball, and the big adjustment that they made in the Steelers game was going to the short pass in the second half. And I mean, Jimmy Smith and Marlon Humphrey, like you can press those guys on receivers and play the short pass if you need to, and without the threat, without the healthy threat of the run from the Bills, like it could spell disaster. And if Wink Martindale can get Josh Allen to press all the buttons on a couple different plays, like that could be all she wrote. But Josh Allen's had a phenomenal season this year, and it is a kind of a nice change of pace from the Titans last week to the Bills this week, where like Lamar and Josh Allen are just like dumping praise on one another because I guess they're like friends. They got drafted in the first round together and all that stuff, and so it'll be a really really fun game. And as long as nothing super crazy happens, like the Bills are a team that I'll root for. Josh Allen's really fun to watch play. I'm very, very much looking forward to this game.
Yeah, the Bills are favored by 2.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly, I think the Ravens will win by 2 scores.
I love the Ravens getting points in this game, by the way. I'll throw that out there.
I
Love it.
I honestly I think that people are forgetting what the preseason expectations were. and then how the Ravens are starting to match that. And they played some bad teams leading up to the end of the season,
Yeah.
but they won their first playoff game against a pretty tough opponent for them. And I honestly think Tennessee is going to they did a better job on defense by a lot than I think the Bills are going to do. Like,
Yeah.
I think the Ravens are going to be in the 30s comfortably points wise this week.
That'd be pretty dope.
Don't ever forget, when the Ravens offense is doing well, they can't slow down.
They can't
like
stop. Yeah.
the plays that they run to be conservative are like the plays that they run to win. So like they just keep
Yeah.
scoring. So that's kind of what I'm expecting out of this.
All right.
38-23.
I like that.
Ravens.
Ooh, yeah. Give me the Chiefs. We want Alabama. Right? That's what I'm supposed to say. We want Bama.
Usually works out for people to say it.
All right. Well, everybody enjoy some more play. Every AFC playoff game has an AFC North team in it this week. How about that? It's good times for this division. It's definitely a division on the rise. Even if you look at Cincinnati making moves, rehabbing Joe Burrow, making shit happen. So
Steelers have the 24th pick in the draft. The
holler.
last time the Steelers picked 24th in the draft, one right guard, David DeCastro.
Mhm.
So it's a position of strength for them. So expect big things.
That's right. And we are actually going to come to you. If you're still watching us, it looks like we've got a couple people watching us still. We're going to come to you tomorrow morning, bright and early. I'll be on here at 6 a.m. We are going to do a little Browns victory lap on the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll spare Chad. And we're going to get Justin in here, an AFC Northcast OG. And
Co-founder. Yeah.
get a little bit of Browns perspective on these playoffs so far and the playoffs to come this weekend. So join us for that. If you can't watch it live, I understand. It's absurd to appointment watch a podcast at 6 a.m. on a Thursday. But catch it on the feed if you can't, or pop up on YouTube or our Facebook page. You got anything else for the fine people at home?
No, I made it through this without crying or throwing up.
Have a good week, everybody.